Hey everyone, hope you're all doing well. Thanks a lot for joining in. I am Aditya. I'm a developer advocate here at Appride, and I'm honestly really happy to be here with you all as a part of the 30-day 30 expert series with Azure Developer Community and Reskill. So I've personally been working with Azure for quite a while now, for the last 3 odd years or so, and being a backend developer, having worked with a lot of APIs and so on. One of these technologies, one service that Azure has that I have very regularly used, one that assists any full stack developers, is Azure App Service. And this is something that I've used at numerous instances, especially being a .NET developer, having worked with ASP.NET, ASP.NET Web APIs, and so on. It has been a service that I have very regularly used. So today in this little session, I will be giving a little demo. I will be showing how you can create, well, an instance of the Azure App Service and how you can deploy a web app to it. And I will be using an ASP.NET web app here. But Azure App Service actually supports a lot of different runtimes, a lot of different platforms and options, whether you're working with uh, Java, with JavaScript, Node.js based applications, whether it's .NET, of course. It's actually got quite a range, which I will be showing on the Azure portal as well. So yeah, hopefully this session educates you on how you can use App Service. So yeah, without much further ado, let me begin. Also, by the way, I'm shifting StreamYard here to my right side. So if I shift right, it just means I'm looking at StreamYard, nothing more. This I'm just doing so that I have access to my primary, working, display here. So let me go ahead and begin. So first up, I'm just going to go ahead and start up the Azure portal, and I will go ahead and log in to my account. This is an account that I've made based on the Azure free trial that is available. If you want, you can go ahead and sign up for Azure. They have a $200 free trial that you can try out. So yeah, you can go ahead and get started with that. That's what I'm running right now as well. So should be good to go. All right. So once you've signed up and logged into Azure, we can click on create a resource, which shows all of these different offerings that we have here. Some popular marketplace products like Ubuntu Server, Windows Server, Elastic Cloud, as well as popular inbuilt Azure services like VMs, Kubernetes Service, Cosmos DB, which is their NoSQL DB, Azure Functions, and so on. But the service that we're really interested in is the web app. The Azure App Service here will be named as a web app because its purpose is to allow you to deploy a full stack web application here. And the really cool thing about Azure is you can actually check out a Microsoft learning path or the documentation for App Service directly as well. So you can go ahead and do that in your free time. For now, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and click on create. And as soon as we do that, it lets us know how we can create an app service instance here for us. As you can see, that is the app service. So first things first, we're going to go ahead, select our subscription. In my case, it's the free trial, of course, but in case you have multiple subscriptions, make sure to select the one that you prefer. Second thing we need to do is we need to select or create a new resource group. And a resource group is essentially a collection of similar resources on your Azure subscription. As you can see, that's also what's going to be mentioned, in the information box here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll create a new resource group for us, and let's name it ADC, Azure Developer Community 30 experts. It's just something relevant to this session, right? And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a name for our application, of course, because this is the name, the domain that where it's going to be deployed. So I'm going to go ahead and keep it ADC 30 experts, and I'll add a .NET because I'll be using an ASP.NET application here as my example. Now, when we see the publish option, you can see there are three different options here. code, Docker container, or static web app. Um, we're going to be keeping it as code for now because we'll be directly deploying from code, both through VS Code or your local system, as well as through GitHub later on. We'll try that. But in the meantime, you can also use a Docker container to publish, as well as static web apps. Static web apps are actually a really cool service that has that Microsoft came up with very recently, in fact. And you can use static web apps to deploy single page applications, which could use web frameworks like React, Angular, Vue. Blazor, of course, is also supported. And with static web apps, you could have a runtime, your backend based on Azure Functions. So it's actually pretty cool. But for now, we'll keep it to code. For the runtime stack, as I mentioned, there are a lot of different options. We've got different .NET based, platform options. We've got Java, Node is there, PHP is an option as well, and then there's Python and Ruby. So we've got a lot of different offerings. For now, I'm going to select .NET 6 because the application that I publish is going to be using .NET 6 here. Now, as you can see, as the moment I selected my runtime stack, it automatically picked an operating system for me, the recommended one. This actually is a pretty handy tool, right? And you can use whatever runtime works best for your system. Like, for example, for PHP, it allows Linux only. For Python, similar scenario. But then, we go to Node and it's got both the options available. So you can choose a runtime, your operating system based on the runtime. For region, I typically recommend keeping the one that's closest to you. For me, that's Central India. So I'm going to keep that, as Central India. Now, for the app service, since we've selected Windows, we're going to have to select an app service plan that works best for us as well. In your case, you can create a new plan if you don't have one already. Like, for example, I don't yet have an app service plan, right? So I'm going to use this, and I'm going to create a new one. And accordingly, you can select your infrastructure. Now, for me, because if this is a free trial, it has a pre-selected plan here. But you can actually change that on an upgraded account, and that way you can increase the number of virtual CPUs, the amount of RAM per each system, all of those options. Then, of course, we have zone redundancy, which lets you deploy your plan as a zone redundant service. So this way, it does help with your fault tolerance. It is disabled for now, considering this is a free trial account. Next up, we've got the deployment settings, which let me select whether I have CI/CD enabled. For now, we're going to keep this off, but I will be showing this later because I will be connecting a GitHub repository to this application. So let me go ahead and move forward to networking. For now, this is not something you need to worry too much about. All right. But you can actually, provision an Azure app service based web app with an inbound address so that you can select whether you want to keep it public or isolated to a very specific virtual network on your Azure subscription. So because this again is a free trial, that's not an option we're going to have for now. As far as monitoring goes, I do always recommend keeping monitoring, and application insights is a fantastic way to do that. It actually lets you get back all the information. It's essentially an APM, an application performance management service, and it lets you monitor your application, figure out where, in case there are any errors, issues, and so on. So it's actually a fantastic tool, and you should definitely use it. We can always set up tags as well. So for now, I'll just, keep type as ADC event for now. Like, this is just an example, but you can actually set these tags as whatever you want. That just there to the key value pairs to help you categorize resources essentially. After you've gone through all this entire setup, you can review all the details you have in case you want to make any changes, and then we go ahead and we create. While this is deploying, let me go ahead and get a little a test application ready. So for that, I'm going to go ahead. Let me just making it a little larger so it's relatively easier to see. and I'll just create a new web app for us using .NET's CLI. I have the .NET CLI installed. If you want to do that, you can go ahead to the .NET website. But that being said, this is just an example, so you can choose Node.js, Java, whatever you want. Just as long as you're creating a web app, you should be good to go for this tutorial. I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna create this new web app, and we'll call it ADC 30 experts as well. That's totally all right, right? And as you can see, it created a little directory for me. It's up here. It's available. I'm gonna go ahead and open this in VS Code now. ADC 30 experts. And yes, I will trust this because I am, of course, the creator here. Let me zoom in a little further here as well. But in the meantime, as you can see, we now have this little web application here with us, right? It's a .NET 6 based web application that we can run. Let me go ahead and run this locally once so that at least we know that this is the application that we're gonna have, right? So I'm gonna just run this application quickly. It's gonna build for me, and we'll get at least a demo of what exactly we have here, right? So looks like this is deployed. So let me go ahead and I'm going to proceed to this application. So as we deploy, you can see that we've got this application here, right? Which is pretty cool. It's an ASP.NET application. We've got this is their template scaffolded application that we can see. We've got our homepage here. We've got an extra privacy page, and if you want to learn more about building web apps, you can always click on the link, which takes us to the documentation, which is pretty handy, by the way. Right. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to try and deploy this to Azure. So in order to do that, first things first, we're going to have to install some Azure tools for us. You can search Azure tools here. As you click on it, you will find an extension pack with a variety of offerings. We've got app service, functions, database. You can install whichever ones you want. Ideally, we will need resources and app service here for sure. And as soon as you install one of these, it will also install the Azure account extension for you, which will kind of create this extra little tab here on the left for us. Okay. So, because I have resources installed, I can go, and you can create a new resource from here. You can create a new web app from here. You can also go ahead, deploy this. So because we have a web app created already, I'm going to try and deploy this application. Now, as I click that, it mentions that, I have a required configuration. I need to deploy this. I will do that. And it looks like, not seem to find my application here for a second. So let me check what's up here. Oh, I see. It seems like there was an issue file creating. Either way, this is the process ideally that we have, and you can also create a web app from here. I will, it does have an error here that I will be reviewing later. It seems like there was an issue with the validation of a particular resource, but I will explore this. But actually, I tell you what, let me try and redeploy it once. Let's see. In the meantime, the good thing is that we can also create an app service from here. So let me go ahead and do that for us. We'll just call this ADC experts. ADC 30 experts. .NET. Runtime stack is .NET 6 for us. I will create a free F1 tier, and it's gonna because I went with the default, not an advanced option. It's created our zone, and it selected some of those details for us directly. But well, let's see. This should definitely create our application for us. I will later on explore what kind of went wrong here. Definitely give it a look. But for now, we should have an application coming up pretty soon. Meantime, let's figure out what kind of went wrong here. Because, I mean, looks like our application is coming up already, but let me just go ahead and call it a test app. PC, upskill. Just giving it a template name. We'll keep .NET 6 here. We'll select Central India. Just quickly go and review and create it once. Oh, I see kind of what went wrong. It's just this particular region is not, seems like the region is not a part of the free trial that we have, which is why things didn't go right. But now that we've got the deployment going, yeah, that's sorted. It was basically an issue with the region and the free trial. If you have an upgraded full Azure account, this shouldn't be an issue. But yeah, looks like our web app here is deployed. Pretty cool. Let me just go ahead and I will check out the app services that we have. Yeah, that's the one. And this is actually up and running. This was the website that we saw earlier, by the way, right? Looks like it's taking a few seconds to deploy. That can happen at times because first it's got this app service that it's created. Actually, I'll tell you what, we forgot to deploy it entirely, didn't we? Sorry, that's my bad. But let me go ahead and let me deploy this to this web app that we have here, and I will deploy it right now. I'm gonna skip this for now. And here where we're going to deploy this application. So we can actually check out the output console and it's going to deploy the web app for us, which is pretty neat. While that happens, let me also go ahead and push this to, a GitHub repo, because we'll connect that GitHub repository to the other, to the other repo that we have running. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to deploy this to GitHub in the meantime. The request was aborted. Not sure what happened. Oh, okay. Let me name this. Yeah, ADC 30 experts is all right. I'll publish this to a public repository. Let me go ahead and remove folders that I don't want in there. It looks like we should be good to go. Actually, I can leave this here. Doesn't matter for now. But I'll leave my build files out. Let's sign into GitHub in my browser quickly once. All right, so looks like that little application is ready, but I do fear that my deployment kind of got paused as well because I was trying. Oh, wait, that went through, which is cool. Right, so that initial deployment that we created from VS Code, that worked. But in general, this isn't always the best practice because, I mean, if you're writing every time and then you have to manually deploy, that can get a little cumbersome, right? Plus, you could end up force deploying your development build, which can cause issues on your web app. So I'll tell you what, why don't we go ahead and we connect this GitHub repository that we've created. So for that, because, we were creating that separate second test app, let me go ahead and deploy it there instead. so that we can keep both of these pages open and we can see the difference. And I'm gonna go ahead and I want to deploy it, right? So for that, we go to the deployment center in your Azure portal. Once within the app service, as soon as you see, you can find the deployment center here. We're going to select our preferred source as GitHub because it's already deployed here. Within the organization, it's my normal main organization, my account, personal. As soon as I do that, it's actually going to list out all the repositories that I have. We've got the one that I wanted to deploy here. And this way you can also select the branch so that in case you want to set your deployments to a specific branch, you can set that and keep building on the other branches so that you only end up deploying when you're ready to merge. You can check out the preview here as well, which is pretty neat and handy, right? And this way we should be good to go. I am not entirely sure why it didn't select. Just give me a second. Huh. Oh yeah, I forgot to save it. That's what happened. All right, so it's setting up deployment now. Now because I've connected, this GitHub repository, it's gonna add, well, a GitHub workflow, a GitHub action workflow here, which is gonna set up this application for deployment. So every time I push to this main branch here, it's gonna build this for me. All right. So let me show you how that's going to happen. First, it's going to deploy. We'll get it up and ready to deploy. And after that, I'll make a push to GitHub and we'll see how both of these repositories acted differently, right? The cool thing is you can actually find all the logs for these deployments here. And you can both cancel this, this workflow in the middle of the process if you need to. So that actually makes this a very handy tool here for us. So right now what it's doing is it's setting up .NET on the app service that we have. And it's just preparing this system here. So for the first time, it can take a little more time that the first build can do that, but subsequent builds are always relatively quicker. So we're gonna wait. In the meantime, I'll tell you what, while this is building, let me get a branch ready so that we can try out and see what happens when we actually make a change, right? That's something we should definitely know. So let me go ahead and I will create a new branch. Check out dash the development. It's going to create a new development branch for us so that whenever wait, what? Let me do one thing. Just sometimes changing that. I'm just changing that my terminal to bash because I got get set up on this device a little earlier. So that might have little issues of its own. But yeah, either way, we're now on a different development branch. So I'm going to make some updates here. We'll see those on GitHub and then we'll see what happens when it merges into the main branch. So in the pages that we have, we've got our main index page, right? We can see what it has. And we're going to say, welcome to 30 days, 30 experts series. And I will add a little shift here. We'll call it learn more about upskill. And let me change this little link here to upskill's website. In the meantime, we can see the deployment is almost good to go. So I'm just confirming whether this is the upskill website. Yes, it is. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to change this to upskill. And by the way, if I run this, I will be able to see a difference in the home page. You can actually change the title as well. Let's change it to index page for now. This way, if I run this locally, we should see a different page here for us. Yep. So as I mentioned, we can see it says the index page is the title, and we've got a new title here, right? So since our original build is also pretty much ready, let me go ahead and open this. Well, our little test app here for us, so we can see all three of these links. So here, this ADC, this website was the first one that we deployed. The page that we had at the start, which we directly deployed from VS Code. This here is our page that is connected to the GitHub repository. And this is a little local build we have, of course. So let me go ahead and, well, let's push this branch to GitHub. Closing the local build. I'm going to push this and call it update. And we're going to publish this branch. So now when I go to GitHub to this repository, we have a second branch that we can create a pull request for. At this point, we're not going to have, well, right now this isn't going to be updated because, well, as per the deployment center, it does deploy from our main page, right? From the main branch, sorry. So, I've got this PR. The moment I merge, we should see our GitHub action being triggered. So I'm just going to go ahead and merge this pull request. And now when I go to GitHub Actions, we have a new merge, right? And this was triggered just because we merged this pull request. Until then, we had no update, nothing. But the moment we do that, if you can refresh, you can see that the build is again being deployed. And we can see, the PR, all of these details. And, that is merged from the development branch on the repository. So, by the way, I'm going to close this local build because it's not running at the moment. But now, we have a build running for this second application that we have. So, as soon as this build completes, we should see the first one remain as it is, but the second one will update. So right now, this deployment is running. This way, by the way, with app service, I think one of the biggest factors in all of this process is that it's actually really convenient to build with, right? Because, just while it's building, if I want to talk about why I like app service, I just had to set it up once, connect my GitHub repository in the process, and after that, I never have to worry about managing deployments at all. The CI/CD that Azure offers with GitHub Actions is actually really very handy, which is why it's a great option to work with. And of course, you're getting Azure's infrastructure in the process, which is one of the largest public clouds in the world. So pretty good there. Looks like our build is ready and it's just going to deploy this application here once. Yep, it's setting up our deployment. It's getting the build artifacts and it'll deploy it to Azure, this app service now. So as soon as this is complete, we'll be able to update and, just update this page once. Looks like that's good to go. So if I reload this page now, we should see an update. There we go. So it's pretty convenient this way, right? Because, just based on a push to GitHub, we were able to update this web app here. And as you can see, the original application that we had, that of course stays as it is because you'd have to manually deploy that each time since there was no CI/CD. But with GitHub and with app service, it's really convenient to have continuous integration and deployment setup. So yeah, I guess that's it for this demo. You can actually see these logs here. It's all available. All of this information is there. You can find that that the moment we had this push, there was there was new data entering. At the same time, you can check requests as well. So whenever I'm accessing this, you can see what requests there are. You can check out the response time. All of this information is available with us, and you can go over and check out application insights as well. Because we have a resource running for it already, you can find the different server requests. This is the response time. In case there were any failures, you can get information about that. You can also check out the application map here. So, for example, because I have gone to this website, we've had a few requests. You can actually get started with the application map here as well, and you can find the different calls, right? So I can see which view was reached out to, and how many calls have been made. All of this information is available here with us, which makes it really, really very handy. So yeah, that's about it for well for app service. It's definitely a fantastic tool for any web developers. It's easy to deploy with, great to work with, and I definitely hope more of you will be trying it out. Thank you.